Haredi Judaism is a stream of Orthodox Judaism characterized by rejection of modern secular culture. Its members are often referred to as strictly Orthodox or ultra-Orthodox in English. The term ultra-Orthodox, however, is considered a derogatory slur by some in the community. Haredim regard themselves as the most religiously authentic group of Jews, although this claim is contested by other streams. Haredi Judaism emerged in response to the sweeping changes brought upon the Jews in the modern era. Emancipation, Enlightenment and the Haskalah movement derived from it, acculturation, secularization, religious reform in all its forms, Jewish nationalism, etc. In contrast to modern Orthodox Judaism, which hastened to embrace modernity, the approach of the Haredim was to maintain a steadfast adherence to Jewish religious law by segregating itself from modern society. However, there are Haredi communities in which getting a professional degree and a trade is encouraged, and contact exists between Haredi and non-Haredi Jews. Haredi communities are primarily found in Israel, North America and Western Europe. Their estimated global population currently numbers 1.3–1.5 million, and due to a virtual absence of interfaith marriage and a high birth rate, their numbers are growing rapidly. Their numbers have also been boosted by a number of secular Jews adopting a Haredi lifestyle. Terminology. Haredi is a modern Hebrew adjective derived from the biblical verb hared, which appears in the book of Isaiah and is translated as one who trembles at the word of God. The word connotes an awe-inspired fear and anxiety to perform the will of God, and is used to describe staunchly Orthodox Jews and to distinguish them from other Orthodox Jews. The word Haredi is increasingly being used in the Jewish diaspora in place of the term ultra-Orthodox, which some view as inaccurate or offensive, it being seen as a derogatory term suggesting extremism. English-language alternatives that have been proposed include fervently Orthodox and strictly Orthodox. Sometimes the community has been characterized as traditional Orthodox, in contradistinction to the modern Orthodox, the other major branch of Orthodox Judaism. Haredi Jews also use other terms to refer to themselves. Common Yiddish words include Yidn or early Yidn, Ben Torah, from and Haimish. In Israel, Haredi Jews are sometimes also called by the derogatory slang words dos, that mimics the traditional Ashkenazi Hebrew pronunciation of the Hebrew word datim, meaning religious, and more rarely, blacks, a reference to the black clothes they typically wear. A related informal term used in English is black hat. History. The forebears of the contemporary Haredim were the traditionalists of Eastern Europe who fought against the new movements emerging in the Jewish communities. Background and formation. For several centuries before Jewish emancipation, most European Jews were forced to live in Jewish ghettos, where both the culture and their religious observances were preserved. This situation began to change with the Age of Enlightenment and calls by some European liberals to include the Jewish population in the emerging empires and nation-states, as well as with Jewry's own Haskalah. This group argued that Judaism itself had to reform in keeping with the social changes taking place around them. Other Jews insisted on maintaining strict adherence to Halakha. In Germany, the opponents of reform rallied to Samson Raphael Hirsch, who led a secession from German Jewish communal organizations to form a strictly Orthodox movement with its own network of synagogues and schools. His approach was to accept the tools of modern scholarship and apply them in defense of orthodoxy. In the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, Jews true to traditional values gathered under the banner of Agudas Shlumai Emunah Yisrael. Moses Sofer was opposed to any philosophical, social or practical change to customary Orthodox practice. Thus, he did not allow any secular studies to be added to the curriculum of his Pressburg yeshiva. Sofer's student Moshe Schick, together with Sofer's sons Shimon and Samuel Benjamin, took an active role in arguing against the reform movement. Others, such as Hillel Lichtenstein, advocated an even more stringent position for orthodoxy. A major historic event was the meltdown after the Universal Israelite Congress of 1868–1869 in Pest. In an attempt to unify all streams of Judaism under one constitution, the Orthodox offered the Shulchan Aruch as the ruling code of law and observance. This was dismissed by the reformists, leading many Orthodox rabbis to resign from the Congress and form their own social and political groups. Hungarian Jewry split into two major institutionally sectarian groups, Orthodox and Neolage. However, some communities refused to join either of the groups, calling themselves status quo. Schick demonstrated support in 1877 for the separatist policies of Samson Raphael Hirsch in Germany. Schick's own son was enrolled in the Hildesheimer Rabbinical Seminary that taught secular studies and was headed by Azriel Hildesheimer. Hirsch, however, did not reciprocate and expressed astonishment at Schick's halakhic contortions in condemning even those status quo communities that clearly adhered to halakha. Lichtenstein opposed Hildesheimer and his son Hirsch Hildesheimer as they made use of the German language in sermons from the pulpit and seemed to sway to the direction of modern Zionism. Shimon Sofer was somewhat more lenient than Lichtenstein on the use of German in sermons, allowing so only if it was a medium for keeping cordial relations with the various governments. Likewise, he allowed extracurricular studies of the gymnasium for students whose rabbinical positions would be recognized by the governments, stipulating the necessity to prove the strict adherence to the God-fearing standards per individual case. In 1912, the World Agudath Israel was founded to differentiate itself from the Torah nationalists, Mizrachi and secular Zionist organizations. It was dominated by the Hasidic rabbis and Lithuanian Rosh Yeshivas, Aguda-nominated rabbis who were elected as representatives in the Polish government Sejm, such as Meir Shapiro and Yitzhak Meir Levin. Not all Hasidic factions joined the Agudath Israel, remaining independent such as Machzai Hadat of Galicia. In 1919, Joseph Chaim Sonnenfeld and Yitzchok Yerusham Diskin founded the Edah HaCharedes as part of Agudath Israel and then Mandate Palestine. In 1924, Agudath Israel obtained 75% of the votes in the Kehillah elections. The Orthodox community polled some 16,000 of a total 90,000 at the Knesset Israel in 1929. But Sonnenfeld lobbied Sir John Chancellor, the High Commissioner, for separate representation in the Palestine community's ordinance from that of the Knesset Israel. He explained that the Agudas Israel community would cooperate with the Vard Leumi and the National Jewish Council in matters pertaining to the municipality, but sought to protect its religious convictions independently. The community petitioned the Permanent Mandates Commission of the League of Nations on this issue. The one community principle was victorious despite their opposition, but this is seen as the creation of the Haredi community in Israel separate from the other modern Orthodox and Zionist movements. In 1932, Sonnenfeld was succeeded by Yosef Dzvi Dushinsky, a disciple of the Shevet Sofer, one of the grandchildren of Moses Sofer. Dushinsky promised to build up a strong Jewish orthodoxy at peace with the other Jewish communities and the non-Jews. Post-Holocaust in general, the present-day Haredi population originate from two distinct post-Holocaust waves. The vast majority of Hasidic and Litvak communities were destroyed during the Holocaust. Though Hasidic customs have largely been preserved, the customs of Lithuanian Jewry, including its unique Hebrew pronunciation, have been almost lost. Litvish customs are still preserved primarily by the few older Jews who were born in Lithuania prior to the Holocaust. In the decade or so after 1945, there was a strong drive to revive and maintain these lifestyles by some notable Haredi leaders. The Chazanish was particularly prominent in the early days of the State of Israel. Rabbi Aharon Kotler established many of the Haredi schools and yeshivas in the United States and Israel, and Rabbi Joel Teitelbaum had a significant impact on revitalizing Hasidic Jewry, as well as many of the Jews who fled Hungary during 1956 revolution who became followers of his Satmar dynasty, and became the largest Hasidic sect in the world. These Haredim would typically only have maintained a connection with other religious family members. As such, those growing up in such families have little or no contact with non-Haredim. The second wave began in the 1970s, associated with the religious revival of the so-called Baal Teshuvah movement. Although most of the newly religious become Orthodox and not necessarily fully Haredi, the formation and spread of the Sephardic Haredi lifestyle movement also began in the 1980s by Rabbi Ovadia Yosef alongside the establishment of the Shas Party in 1984. This led many Sephardi Jews to adopt the clothing and culture of the Lithuanian Haredim, though it had no historical basis in their own tradition. Many yeshivas were also established specifically for new adopters of the Haredi way of life. The original Haredi population has been instrumental in the expansion of their lifestyle, though criticisms have been made of discrimination towards the later adopters of the Haredi lifestyle in Shidduchim and the school system.